Hey everyone, welcome back to Speak Flow, where English flows naturally. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Jake. Sophie, can I ask you something weird?
Always.
When you hear me speak English right now, do I sound fluent to you?
I mean, yeah, you're a native speaker. Of course you sound fluent.
Okay, but what if I told you that yesterday I was trying to explain to my mechanic what was wrong with my car, and I sounded like a complete idiot?
What do you mean?
Like, he asked me what's the problem, and I said, it's making a thing, like a noise. Kind of a clunking, but only when I turn. And sometimes when I don't turn, I don't know, it's just weird. That's what I said, word for word. I'm a native English speaker, and I said, it's making a thing.
But that's because you don't know car vocabulary, not because you're not fluent.
Exactly. And that's what I want to talk about, because I think people have this idea of fluency that's like, once you're fluent, you sound perfect all the time. But that's not true. Even native speakers sound terrible when they're talking about something they don't know well.
Oh, that's such a good point. Fluency isn't a finish line where suddenly everything is easy.
Right. It's more like you're fluent in some topics and completely lost in others. I'm fluent at talking about design, about food, about my dog. Ask me about cars or taxes or medicine, and I sound like I'm learning English for the first time.
And that's true for everyone. I work in marketing and I can talk about campaigns and strategy all day. But last week, my dad, who's an accountant, was explaining something about tax deductions, and I literally said, so it's like you pay less because of the thing?
Because of the thing. You and me at the mechanic.
The thing. We both defaulted to the thing. And you know what that means? Fluency depends on what you're talking about. It's not a general skill. It's topic specific.
And I think that's actually really freeing for people learning English, because you don't need to be fluent at everything. You can be fluent at the things that matter to your life.
Right. If you work in tech, you probably already know tons of English tech vocabulary. You might sound super fluent talking about code or databases, but completely freeze ordering coffee. And that's fine. You're fluent where you need to be.
Okay, but let's talk about something else, because I think there's a difference between being fluent and sounding fluent. And I think the sounding part is what most people are actually chasing.
Ooh, what do you mean?
Like, there are people who know a lot of English, big vocabulary, good grammar, but when they speak, they sound careful. Every word is precise and correct. And then there are people who know less English, make more mistakes, but they sound natural. They sound like they're having a conversation, not taking a test.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. I had two coworkers who were both learning English. One of them, let's call her Maria, she spoke slowly, chose every word carefully, and her grammar was almost perfect. But talking to her felt like talking to a textbook.
And the other one?
The other one, let's call him David, he made mistakes all the time. Wrong verb tenses, missing articles, words in the wrong order. But he was fast, he was expressive, he laughed in the middle of sentences. He said, you know, and like, and I mean, and honestly, all those little filler words. And talking to him felt like talking to a friend.
So who sounded more fluent?
David, by far. And I think that would surprise a lot of learners, because Maria was technically better at English, but David sounded better.
That's kind of unfair, isn't it?
It is, but I think it tells us something important about what fluency actually sounds like. It's not accuracy, it's flow, it's rhythm. It's the feeling that the person is comfortable, not calculating.
Comfortable, not calculating. Yeah, when you can tell someone is translating in their head, even if their translation is perfect, it sounds different from someone who's just talking.
And here's the thing, those little words that Maria was skipping, the ums and likes and you knows, those are actually what make speech sound human. Native speakers use them constantly. They're not mistakes, they're part of how natural speech works.
Wait, so filler words are a good thing?
In moderation, absolutely. When you say, so I was thinking, like, maybe we could, try that new place, that sounds like a real person thinking out loud. But if you say, I propose that we attempt the new establishment, technically more correct, but...
You sound like a robot applying for a dinner reservation.
Exactly. So one of the secrets to sounding fluent is actually, and this sounds counterintuitive, stop trying to be perfect. Let yourself hesitate. Let yourself use filler words. Let yourself start a sentence and change direction in the middle.
Actually, wait, no, what I meant was, that's something native speakers say all the time.
All the time. And it sounds natural because it is natural. Nobody speaks in perfectly formed sentences. We start, we stop, we restart, we change our minds. That's how conversation works.
I want to tell you about something that happened to my brother Tom. He was visiting a friend in Brazil and he was trying to learn Portuguese. And he came back and he was like, I don't understand. I studied for 3 months, I know the words, but when Brazilians talk to each other, I can't follow them at all. They're too fast.
Oh, the speed thing.
The speed thing. And I think a lot of English learners feel the same way. They think fluent people speak fast, and then they think, I need to speak fast to sound fluent.
Which is wrong.
Is it? I feel like speed is part of it.
Okay. I think speed is a result of fluency, not the cause. Fluent people speak faster because they're not translating, but speaking fast doesn't make you fluent. If you speak fast and no one understands you, that's not fluency. That's just fast mumbling.
Fast mumbling. Ha. But I see what you mean. It's not about speed, it's about smoothness.
Yeah, it's about flow. You can speak slowly and sound completely fluent if the words come smoothly with natural pauses in natural places. Actually, some of the best public speakers in English speak quite slowly. They pause for effect. They let words breathe.
Obama was like that, right? He spoke slowly, but every word felt intentional.
Exactly. Nobody would say Obama wasn't fluent. He just chose to be deliberate. And that's a style, not a limitation.
So if you're a learner and you speak slowly, that's not necessarily a problem.
Not if the slowness is deliberate. There's a difference between I'm speaking slowly because I'm choosing my words carefully and I'm speaking slowly because I'm translating in my head and the words won't come. The first one sounds confident. The second one sounds stuck.
And the difference is, in the first one, you pause between ideas. In the second one, you pause inside a word or in the middle of a sentence.
Oh, that's a really sharp observation. Yeah, if you pause between sentences, it sounds like you're thinking. If you pause in the middle of, I went to the store, that's where it breaks.
So the tip is, if you need to pause, finish the sentence you're on first, then pause, then start the next one.
Basically, yeah. Even if the sentence is short. I went to the store. Pause. And I bought some things. Pause. It was nice. Each sentence is complete. The pauses are between them. That sounds way more fluent than I went to the store and I bought some things and it was nice.
Same words, completely different feeling.
Completely different. And here's something funny. I figured this out by accident with French. I was so afraid of pausing in the wrong place that I started keeping my sentences really short, like stupidly short. I like Paris. The food is good. My hotel is nice. And people kept saying, oh, your French is great. And I was thinking, I literally said 6 words.
But they sounded fluent because they were complete and smooth.
Exactly. Short, complete sentences with confident delivery sound way more fluent than long, broken sentences with perfect grammar.
That's kind of a hack, isn't it? Keep your sentences short and you instantly sound more fluent.
It's not a hack. It's genuinely how native speakers talk in casual conversation. We don't usually speak in long, complex sentences. We say, I'm tired. This is good. I don't know. Maybe.
Short, fast, done. The complexity comes from connecting many short sentences, not from making each sentence long.
Huh. I never noticed that about my own speech. But you're right. When I'm texting or talking casually, my sentences are really short.
And here's another thing. Reactions. The little sounds and words you make when someone is talking to you. Oh, really? No way. That's crazy. Right. These tiny responses do so much work.
Because they show you're following the conversation.
Yes, and they make the conversation feel alive. If someone tells you a story and you just stare at them in silence until they finish, that's weird. But if you throw in, "Oh no," and "Wait, what?" and "Haha, seriously?" suddenly you sound like you belong in the conversation.
I do that in English without thinking. No way. For real? That's wild. But when I speak Spanish, I just stare because I'm so focused on understanding that I forget to react.
And that's what makes you sound less fluent. Not your vocabulary, not your grammar, but the absence of those human reactions. It's like watching a movie with no soundtrack. The information is there, but the feeling is missing.
A movie with no soundtrack. That's such a good analogy. The reactions are the soundtrack of conversation.
And the beautiful thing is, you can learn like 5 reactions and use them everywhere. Really? Oh, wow. That makes sense. I know, right? Same. 5 words, but they make you sound like you've been speaking English your whole life.
Okay, this is something I actually noticed with that language exchange group I joined. There was one woman, I think she was from Korea, and her English wasn't the most advanced in the group, but she sounded the most natural because she reacted to everything. Someone would say, "I went hiking last weekend," and she'd go, "Oh, nice, where?" And then, "Wow, that sounds beautiful." And then, "I should try that." Simple responses, but she felt like the most engaged person in the room.
Because she was the most engaged. And that's what fluency sounds like. Engagement, not perfection.
Fluency sounds like engagement, not perfection. Can we put that on a t-shirt?
The Speak Flow merch collection. Okay, let me bring up one more thing. Contractions. Because this is small, but it makes a huge difference.
Contractions, like I'm instead of I am?
Yeah, it's such a tiny thing, but it changes how you sound completely. I am going to the store. I do not want to go alone. It is very far. That sounds formal, maybe a little stiff.
Versus I'm going to the store. I don't want to go alone. It's pretty far.
Same meaning, completely different vibe. The second one sounds like a person talking. The first one sounds like a textbook reading itself out loud.
A textbook reading itself out loud.
And it's not wrong to say I am or do not. Sometimes you want that emphasis. I do not want to go. That's emphatic. But in normal everyday speech, contractions are how people talk.
So, if you're speaking English and not using contractions, that alone might be making you sound less fluent?
It's one of those things where native speakers can't always explain why someone sounds unnatural. They just feel it. And often it's the contractions, or the lack of filler words, or the long, complex sentences, or the absence of reactions. All these tiny things that add up.
It's like no single one is the problem, but together they create a feeling.
Exactly. And you know what's not on that list? Accent. I didn't mention accent once.
Oh, that's true, because a lot of people think sounding fluent means sounding American or sounding British.
Right, and that's just not true. Some of the most fluent English speakers I know have strong accents from their home countries. My coworker Anna, she has a very obvious Italian accent. She says R differently, her vowels are different, and nobody would say she's not fluent. She's one of the most articulate people in our office.
So, accent and fluency are different things.
Completely different. Accent is about pronunciation patterns from your native language.
Fluency is about how smoothly and comfortably you communicate. You can have a thick accent and be incredibly fluent, and you can have a perfect American accent and still sound awkward if you pause in weird places and never use contractions.
I think I might push back a little on that, because I've met people whose accent made them genuinely hard to understand. And if people can't understand you, is that fluent?
That's fair. There's a difference between accent and clarity. If your accent makes certain sounds unclear, that can be a communication issue. But that's about specific sounds, not about sounding American. You can work on the sounds that cause confusion and still keep your accent.
So it's not about erasing your accent, it's about being understood.
Exactly. Your accent is part of who you are. It tells people where you're from, what languages shaped you. That's beautiful, not something to fix.
I like that. I know a guy from Germany who speaks perfect English, great vocabulary, great grammar, and he has this strong German accent. And honestly, it sounds cool. It sounds distinctive.
Right? And nobody thinks he's not fluent. They think he's German and fluent. Those two things coexist.
So if you're spending hours trying to sound American or British, maybe spend those hours on reactions and contractions instead.
That would probably make a bigger difference, honestly, because the things that make you sound fluent to a listener are rhythm, flow, reactions, and comfort, not accent. A person with a perfect accent who speaks in long, stiff, complete sentences with no filler words sounds less fluent than a person with a strong accent who uses natural rhythm and reacts to things.
That's wild, but I think it's true.
It's the Maria versus David thing again. David had an accent. Maria didn't. David sounded more fluent.
Because David had the flow.
He had the flow. All right, and together, these things are also the solution. You don't need to change everything. Even picking one of these, using more contractions or adding reactions or keeping sentences shorter, just one change can shift how you sound.
That's encouraging. It's not change everything about how you speak, it's change one tiny thing.
One tiny thing, and then maybe one more, and then one more. And slowly, without realizing it, you sound different. Not because you learned 1,000 new words, but because you changed how you use the ones you already have.
That's the theme of this whole episode, isn't it? It's not about knowing more, it's about using what you have differently.
That's it. That's the whole secret.
Still not a very glamorous secret.
The best ones never are. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Subscribe if you're new. We make these every week, and a like really helps other learners find us.
Share this with someone who thinks they need more vocabulary to sound fluent. They probably don't. They just need to talk differently.
All right, Sophie, comment time.
Okay, we want to know which of these things surprised you the most. That filler words are good? That short sentences sound more fluent? That reactions matter more than grammar? Tell us in the comments. And if you want to practice, record yourself saying something in English and listen back. You might sound more fluent than you think.
You probably do.
You really probably do. All right, thanks for being here, everyone.
Keep talking, messy and perfect short sentences. That's the goal.
See you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.